Capitol Hill to Wall Street. This is Politics and Profits with your host, Rick Amato.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick Amato. It's time for Politics and Profits.
We follow the trends on Capitol Hill that lead to the profits on Wall Street. We expose the hard facts of what your elected officials are doing when you're not looking. And we show you how you can profit from their politics. The American dream is alive and well, and you can be proud to call America your home. And now, it's Rick Amato.
Welcome to Politics and Profits, everyone. I'm Rick Amato. Well, let's jump right into it. Joining me at this time, as he often does, is hedge fund manager, venture capitalist, and futurist at and he's a CEO and founder of Bullseye Capital. Let's welcome from Los Angeles, Joel Block. Joel, good to have you with us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me, man.
You know, Joel, one of the great things you do on this show, and I'm sure your clients appreciate, is that you are always on the cutting edge of what's happening, or shall I say, what's about to happen in society. And in fact, when you come on this show, you're always prepared to make a prediction or two. I need to ask you, will you be making a prediction or two in today's show?
You can count on a prediction or two, probably toward the end. Toward the end of our discussion, let's go through a few things first, and then we'll predict.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. And what we're looking at is the effects on government of the pandemic, of the pandemic. You're following this story. It's one of great interest to me, and I'm sure our viewers. What's on your plate?
Well, you know, Rick, one of the things that's not really being discussed, we're talking a lot about individual unemployment. We're talking about, businesses that are having problems. We're not really talking about the really, really big elephant in the room. And the really big elephant are the governmental entities that are they're suffering under this pandemic. We all think that they're just shutting us down and they're doing all this stuff. The state governments are what's shutting us down. But the truth is that the local and municipal, the state governments, and the federal government as well, they're all suffering, or if they haven't started and they have, they're going to see something terrible. And here's why. Think about this. So, I said last time that less people start driving into the city because they start liking driving. They start liking being at home, so they drive less into the city. That's less. It's not only less restaurants that we need and less office space that we need. It's less traffic tickets. It's less parking tickets and all the other things that happen. It's less cars parking, which is less sales tax. A lot less things start moving. So there's a lot less taxation. And the government has set up its taxation system based on how we've always done it. And things are about to change in a big way. And governments are really not ready for the massive change that's on the horizon. So not only are less people going to be driving, and less taxes for all those reasons, there's a slew of other things that are affecting the way that governments collect their tax.
Would that then mean an increase in income tax rates at the state level?
Well, what it means is that governments are going to have to figure out new ways to tax people. Here, let me give you a couple more examples. I see a future where these self-driving cars are pretty much going to take over Uber. That's kind of the plan. I know that's Uber's plan. And so imagine one day that you plug into your calendar and a car pulls up to your house, picks you up at 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock appointment, drives you to your appointment, drops you off. If this starts to become widespread, then not only the downtown areas start suffering this whole loss of motor vehicle tickets, parking tickets, because these self-driving cars are not going to get in tickets. There's all kinds of other problems. Then we have all these electric cars. These things start picking up steam. They're not collecting gasoline taxes at the pump. If people are driving less and if they're being more efficient, they're using alternative vehicles. So all these things require governments to relook at how they tax. And what governments tend to do is they'll extra tax, so they'll try to squeeze one more area more tightly. But they're going to have to really think of new ways to tax citizens because their current revenue streams are expiring. The way that they've always collected is expiring.
Joel, do you think the governments have realized that yet, or are they, in my cliche-ish image of government bureaucrats, behind the curve on this?
Yeah, I don't think that they thought about this enough. There probably are a couple people who thought about it a little bit, but I don't think they thought about it enough. This is a widespread issue. Think about this. So, we talked about how, CEOs of companies are going to start moving workforces outside of these big cities. Let's say New York City. Well, New York City has a special 9 or 10% tax on the city, on people that work in the city. Well, imagine if a 50-story building, they keep 4 floors and they send 46 floors of people to New Jersey. I mean, New York City is not going to collect that tax ever. It's never going to be collected. And they can't tax the existing people enough to make up for that tax. So governments are going to have to reorganize themselves in a significant way, because this pandemic has changed patterns of behavior in a material way that's going to force governments to relook at themselves.
What does that mean for the citizens out there? Do we know that yet?
Well, it's very unclear, because the first place governments are going to do is they're going to go to income tax, or they're going to go to the sales tax, they're going to go to the property tax.
Yeah.
They're going to go to all the places where they normally go, because those are things that they understand and that they can count on. But there's only so many dollars that you can take out of somebody's pocket. I mean, when you're taking it a little pinch here and a little pinch there, it doesn't feel so bad. But when you take it entirely out of their paycheck, then it hurts even more.
Yeah.
So, governments are going to have to be creative and think about these things.
When might we see some of these changes start taking effect, you suppose?
Well, think about, look, it's already happening. During the pandemic, governments, the amount of tax that they're collecting is off by, in some cases, 50, 60, 70%. And the smaller governments are really, they're really in a pinch. They're really hurting. The state of California had a $6 billion surplus, and now they've zoomed to a $54 billion deficit because of unemployment payouts, because they didn't collect income tax from all these unemployed people. They're not collecting sales tax because there were months and months and months where people didn't buy things. Just all the different things that are happening. There's been a tremendous contraction of the society. So as the society gets bigger, taxes get bigger, and as taxes get bigger, governments get bigger. And then when one thing contracts, the government's going to need to contract with it. And governments don't like to contract very much, because they kind of get used to living how they live. So it's not a matter of one day they're going to flip the light switch on.
Yeah.
It's already happening. Now, the new technologies, that absolutely is going to be something that's new. That's going to happen in the future. But right now, but already, there are tremendous changes that are taking place because of the pandemic.
All right, Joel Block, you sort of hinted at it. Let's hear. You said you would have a prediction or two. Let's hear these predictions.
Well, so listen. So state and local governments cannot print money the way the federal government does.
Yeah.
So they're going to be looking for big handouts from the feds. I mean, they're going to be looking for big handouts from the feds, probably much bigger handouts than went to all the consumers in the society. So potentially trillions of dollars are going to need to be issued from the Fed to the local governments. If the local governments decide, if they don't get enough, or if the Fed doesn't give them what they think they need, these governments either have to borrow money or they have to do something even more extreme. And here's what that is: they may actually have to start to shrink. They're going to have to go on a governmental liposuction program, and that liposuction program is going to cause them to trim the fat. Now, what governments tend to do is, instead of taking the services that are really overhead that are not necessary, they tend to eliminate the things that we like, so that they can keep what they like, and then they can encourage a tax increase to get back what they took away. But it's not going to keep working, because the decimation has been too great. So what I'm predicting is that we might see governments coordinating between themselves, local governments coordinating between themselves, to collapse into single bigger units. I'm not really a fan anymore. Listen, I understand that, hundreds of years ago, we needed to have 50 states. I don't know that we need 50 states anymore. I don't know that we need to have a city government in every single city in America. I mean, think about how much duplication, just terrible duplication. What a waste. There's no economy of scale. And I happen to think that some of these little cities are probably going to start to combine in a way that will force them to save some money and be able to render services to their constituents without all the overhead.
Joel, that's a fascinating prediction. As I hear you lay it out, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of logic to it. Why do we need these little towns duplicating the same bureaucratic expenses and services over?
Hey, look, and that could ripple all the way up to a couple of our states. If a couple of our states get into some really big trouble. I mean, I'm not saying that states are going to collapse and we're going to end up with less, but it's not off the table that we couldn't end up with less than 50 states for financial.
It's just off the top of my head, it sure feels like Delaware and Rhode Island could combine.
And look, North Dakota, South Dakota, some of these states that have little population, They really, except for that there are power centers and people
Oh, yeah.
power, they really don't need to.
All right, Joel Block, we're out of time. You did not fail in delivering. As we said, you're always on a cutting edge of what's happening here. Yeah, our viewers appreciate it. I'm sure your clients appreciate it. And we now know why your title is a futurist.
All right, man. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Keep an eye on the city government, state government, federal government, see what happens. Thanks for joining us.
We'll do it.
Back after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.